everybody, and welcome to Project HR, a podcast dedicated to building better workplaces. Project HR is brought to you by Projections, an IRI company. IRI helps organizations navigate workplace challenges, improve employee engagement and productivity, manage labor relations, and implement effective communication strategies to achieve their goals. For more information, you can visit Projections online at projectionsinc.com. I am Jennifer Oraquah, Director of Business Development for IRI, and your host for today's episode of Project HR. Now, we didn't invent the way we work, and neither did our parents or even our grandparents. The parameters and processes by which we work were established long ago, during the industrial age. But as times have changed, while we've changed as employees, and while our businesses, our products, and services have all dramatically changed as well, the way we go about our work has stubbornly remained the same. My guest today believes that it's time for us all to evolve, to meet the needs of our own age, and that starts with a fresh take on leadership. So talking with me today is Jeffrey Spahn, founder and president of Leading Leaders, Inc., and author of We the Leader, Build a Team of Equals Who All Lead and Follow to Drive Creativity and Innovation. Jeff, it's so great to have you here on Project HR.
It's great to be here.
Now, Jeff, I feel like sometimes it takes a throwback to put our businesses in perspective. And right now, there's a lot of buzz around how potential employees are actively seeking out companies with whom they feel a connection and shared values. But way back in 2003, you published an article titled A New Capitalist Manifesto, Reimagining Business in the 21st Century, that's being recognized as having been ahead of its time. In it, you had asked us to balance profit with purpose. Can you talk to me a little bit about that article, how it relates to the development of the concepts in your latest work?
Sure. Well, we know today that the notion of purpose is taking on a much more prominent position in the context of business than it was back in 2003. With the Business Roundtable and all of the activity and the emphasis upon having a meaningful purpose, primarily by which to attract people who are looking for a meaningful work experience. Mm-hmm. And the notion of purpose, I did some research to create that article. And the question back then was, is it about profit or is it about purpose? And the conversations I got into were right head on with that with a number of top executives. And so it was just really fascinating that it was like, keep it under the table. We're not. There's a big difference between whether we're motivated for profit or for purpose, and let's not really talk about it. And that's quite a difference than it is today. Mm-hmm. Now, I think in some cases, with good reason, we wonder about the sincerity of that emphasis today. But there we are.
For sure. And these are concepts, obviously, we've been contemplating for a while. So why was now the right time for your We the Leader book?
Wow. There are multiple things that make now a great time for We the Leader. I think, one, just where we are as a society about what it means to lead and the divergent nature of leadership that is showing up in our businesses, in our society, in our governance. Mm. And it's an opportunity to reset the leadership, the fundamental understanding of leadership. And so I think the timing there is quite good. Mm-hmm. And I think people are looking for something that is, that addresses the staidness of hierarchy without dismantling hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And so I think, if you've got some folks who just, let's get rid of the hierarchy, and you have other folks who are like, wow, if we don't have the hierarchy, we're going to have total chaos. So what are we going to do? And I'm not sure that people are really articulating that setup there. But they're feeling it, and then the conversations aren't what they could be if we get more into a both and rather than a either or approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And We the Leader really, it's a call to us as business leaders to evolve. And in fact, in the introduction to your book, it begins with Marshall Goldsmith's classic mantra of "What got you here will not get you there," which I love. Yes. But let's talk about what got us here. What's our starting point in this evolution?
Well, in your opening comments, you talked about the Industrial Revolution and the notion of work. And where I would like to start, Jennifer, is with the word collaboration.
Hmm.
The word collaboration is rooted in co-labor. That's an industrial age concept and practice.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still using that word to talk about what it means to work. And we use it as an example of effective leadership. And yet our language reveals the limits of our subconscious thinking.
Hmm.
And I'm all for collaboration as we understand it, but we need a new evolved framework
Mm-hmm.
for understanding what it means to not just work together, but to create together and to create our lives together, create our work, our projects, our teams, our organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different model than a co-labor where someone else is making all the decisions and then we're doing the labor.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
come on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's time for something new here, a new language.
So why does this need to happen now? What's at risk if we don't evolve at this point?
Well, I don't want to be dramatic, but I may sound dramatic. Uh, but I think it means the destiny of our race as human beings. We need to get past the Industrial Revolution mindset and habits of collaborating and leading.
Hmm.
If not, we're not going to make it. It's going to fall.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to make it, and we're going to make it because we're going to evolve in leadership again. Leadership in the industrial age had primarily a militaristic approach of command and control.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1969, there were two books that came out, one on servant leadership, one on situational leadership. They were radical books about, hey, it's not just one person leading everybody else. You lead or you follow depending upon the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that has served us well up till now. And now it's the we the leader approach, where we don't just lead or follow depending on the situation. We all show up as leaders
Mm.
who are also followers, and we learn to lead and follow each other in a way that activates innovation and trust on a whole nother level. And that's exactly what we need. More and more in moment trust and relationship building
Mm.
and new and fresh ideas. And then the capacity to execute on those new and fresh ideas very quickly.
All right, Jeff, these are fascinating concepts. I will need to take a sponsorship break right now, but when you and I come back, I very much want to discuss what this new future of work and leadership could look like. So we'll be right back.
Wise Words e-learning will teach your supervisors how to respond appropriately to tough employee questions about unions, including questions about dues, collective bargaining, promises, and more. Based on solid adult learning theory, Wise Words guides supervisors, helping them practice their skills in a fun and engaging format that sticks with them over time. Wise Words e-learning is delivered in microbursts of learning and is available online 24/7. Your leaders can practice their skills anytime and anywhere there's an internet connection on any device. Wise Words training will protect your company from ULP charges and give your leaders the confidence to connect with employees. Learn more and sign up for a demo at projectionsinc.com today.
I'm back with Jeffrey Spahn, founder and president of Leading Leaders Incorporated and author of We the Leader, Build a Team of Equals Who All Lead and Follow to Drive Creativity and Innovation. Now, Jeff, let's talk about this next step in our evolution and the idea of panarchy.
Yes.
What is panarchy?
Well, let me give a little bit of background here and a bit of historical context. We're all familiar with the notion of monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And anarchy, right? Anarchy
Sure.
is no rule,
Right.
and disorder. And then monarchy is one rule. Archy is related to rule.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll simplify this. Then we have hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And hierarchy is some ruling over others. And what I see evolving, and I'll give reasons for that, and what is evolving is what I call panarchy, which is all rule. Everyone's a leader.
Mm.
And I see two major developments here. One is more and more, particularly with millennials and other and generations in that context, are showing up as leaders. They're leading their own lives. They're not just looking for orders to do. They want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
They want something meaningful and purposeful, and they're showing up wanting to lead their own life.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to lead their own life and make those choices. And in the book, we talk about the notion that really, only I can lead my own life. Nobody else can lead me.
Sure.
I'm the only one who knows my thinking, my feeling, my experiences. I'm the only one that makes my choices. Now, I might make some of those unconsciously. So fundamentally, there's the identity of people within an organization as leaders. And Mike Kaufman at Cardinal Health, who has a chapter in the book, his title is A Career of Leading Leaders.
Mm.
And one of the things that tied into him about the We the Leader message was that's how he's seen himself as a leader, that
Mm-hmm.
he's leading other leaders. And then the second dimension is to get work done today, more and more and more, it requires leaders from across an organization. We call those integrated teams, cross-functional teams, projects. And there we have gathering of leaders. So more and more leaders are challenged not just to lead followers, but to lead leaders.
Mm.
And if we show up in those contexts with our mindset and habits of leading followers, we're not going to reach that innovation and productivity that we need.
Mm-hmm. So let's shift a little bit and talk about collective flow. What is collective flow, and how does that work hand in hand with this concept?
Yes, great question. I had an experience of collective flow when I was 16 on an athletic field, and we just outperformed ourselves in spectacular fashion. It felt like it was raised to another dimension of existence, and it was like, whoa. And these collective flow experiences happen. And if we haven't experienced them ourselves, we know of teams or organizations or a jazz group or an improv group or a weekend IT project that was just a mess. And all of a sudden, everything came together by midnight on Friday. And we have these kinds of experiences where, woo, the magic is working.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, hey, that's established. The book's purpose is to say, hey, how can we consistently experience collective flow? And here's how we do it. And so that's the premise of the book. Did I answer your question there,
Yeah,
though?
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. And I want to take another slight left turn into consilience. What is that, and how does
Yeah.
that?
So consilience is one of the pieces for the how we the leaders backed by science.
Mm-hmm.
Consilience, for me, there's a number of different uses of the word, but come from me from the use of Edward O. Wilson, evolutionary biologist, a Harvard biologist, in his book of that title, Consilience, over 20 years ago.
Mm.
And basically, the notion of consilience is the jumping together of opposite energy, that's the evolutionary impulse of life itself, that a human being is created from opposite sex jumping together and creating something new. And he tends to establish that's the evolutionary impulse of life itself. And
Mm.
so I grab onto that and say that's the foundation of collective flow,
Mm.
where we engage each other with our differences. We make a difference through our differences. Now, we
Mm-hmm.
have a common purpose, we have a common understanding, but in the context of that, we make a difference through our differences, through our opposing points of view. And that's the heartbeat of innovation. That's the heartbeat of life itself.
Mm.
And so I'm grabbing that and saying, yeah, that's part of the conceptual framework and the mindset of a we the leader.
Sure. Now, is there, I know, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening are thinking this is way out there for me. Is there a role for traditional hierarchy in this new way of work?
Yes, definitely, Rule, and that's a great question. So the role of hierarchy, I'll just summarize it here, and then maybe we can unpack it a little bit, is typically its history is the chain of command, right? And to create order and to exercise labor in a controlled fashion and avoid chaos and craziness. And so the role of hierarchy today, in the context of we the leader, is to facilitate the collective flow I just talked about, to facilitate the conversations in which opposing energies are not just tolerated, but expected and welcomed and celebrated. Because, hey, this is an opportunity to create. Woo! Now we need to develop some emotional intelligence and some inner leadership capacities to show up that way consistently, because sometimes opposing points of view can feel terrible, threatening. They're scary. And how do we develop the capacity to hold a container for those opposing points of view?
So if everyone leads themselves, how do we prevent it from becoming anarchy? How do we prevent it from becoming chaotic?
Right. And so within the We the Leader framework, we define everyone as the leader of themselves. That's what we call the diversifier, the section of the book, the diversifier. And then the second section of the book is the equalizer. And in that, we make the observation that within an organization, everyone is a follower of the common purpose. That's what an organization is. You gather around a common purpose. And that's even more clear today with all the emphasis on purpose, which wasn't the case back when I wrote that article and did that research.
Sure.
And so that's another trend that makes it time for we the leader. And so, therefore, everyone on a fundamental basis, everyone within an organization is a leader of their own life, or increasingly within the organization, and a follower of the common purpose. So we have a community of leader followers. That's an egalitarian structure that's just there. I mean, I didn't make that up. I'm just observing it.
Sure.
And now what do we do with hierarchy? Hierarchy serves the purpose, and it has throughout the practice of we the leader over the last 20 years, that it creates the context and allows for the creating the context and the environment for collective flow to happen.
So how can we as leaders inspire or facilitate collective flow?
We know how to lead followers, and we know how to lead or follow depending upon the situation. But the task before us in we the leader and in experiencing consistent collective flow is, how do I lead and follow at the same time, in the same moment, with the same action? I remember Dave, a CEO of a top financial company, when I was first talking to him about this was about 6 years ago. He's like, he says, well, how do I do that? And I said, you do that by bringing and inspiring others to bring a curious conviction. And he's like, wait a second. I know how to be curious in one moment, asking questions. And in another moment, I know how to bring a conviction, express my point of view. But how do I do both of those at the same time? And that's what we the leader, we call that bringing a curious conviction. And that curious conviction starts with the conciliant mindset, or the mindset that, hey, I believe in the notion that we can create from our differences. No matter how terrible it might feel, we have an opportunity to reframe that as an opportunity to create. That's the evolutionary impulse of life itself.
Love these ideas, Jeff. I'm going to have to take time out for another quick break. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to the Project HR podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Oraqua, and my guest today is Jeffrey Spahn, founder and president of Leading Leaders, Inc., and author of We the Leader, Build a Team of Equals Who All Lead and Follow to Drive Creativity and Innovation. And we are back. So, you and I have talked a lot about the theoretical benefits of shifting to this new model, but what are the more concrete, positive organizational benefits of adopting this approach?
Yes. Well, the benefits of collective flow are wow. I mean, we're talking about creating an environment of consistent collective flow. And Jennifer, one of the things that excites me most about this is that in bringing and inspiring others to bring a curious conviction to activate consistent collective flow, it is great for the human being. It's an alive experience of being in the moment and creating with others in a spectacular fashion. That feels good. That's
Hmm.
fun. That that enlivens my life as a human being. That's what people are looking for. At least folks under 50 or under 60.
Hmm.
And it generates that. But at the same time, it is great for business.
Hmm.
We need innovation. We need creative ideas. But if we only have creative ideas, we're not going to actualize them. We need in sync execution, and collective flow marries or harmonizes creative ideas with trust. And in that trust, people get things done, and they get them done more quickly.
Hmm.
I've seen teams come together, the operation and salespeople, opposing points of view.
Hmm.
They just see it differently. One doesn't want to spend money, the other does want to spend money. And that's just
Right.
the top of the surface.
Hmm.
But when you create this environment I'm describing, then they start to create. And this same company, they created a new product that is now the standard for today. Um, and teams and organizations are able to experience that notion of consistent collective flow.
Hmm. So I know you have a background in improvisation, and we've talked
Yeah.
about improv here on Project HR in the past. What role does improv play in this new leadership model?
Well, I really appreciate that question because I'm in Chicago,
Mm.
and I've went through several layers of Second City improv
Mm.
training,
Hmm.
and it was one of the best things I've done for myself.
Oh yeah.
And I remember, Jennifer, sitting in there, and this was a few years ago, and the instructor talked about the notion of follow the follower, like
Hmm.
the yes and, right?
Hmm. Right. Sure.
Yes and follow the follower, follow the follower. And I'm thinking, that's the same as lead the leader.
Right.
It's just different language.
Hmm.
You
Sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. And and through the disciplines and skills and the mindset of improvisation, I was recognizing what I was onto,
Hmm.
and then that helped me jump it.
Hmm. Hmm.
That whole experience, and that dynamic of being in the moment. I could tell you a couple stories, but just being in the moment and creating together with a group of people
Hmm.
on the fly.
Right.
I've never felt more alive. I mean, it's just like, whoa, you got
Yeah.
to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I want more of that.
Yeah. For sure.
And that's what has happened when I go into corporations. I
Hmm.
work with a particular team, and other people want more of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, and so that's how I talk about the role of improv. That whole Second City got started here in Chicago. Viola
Hmm.
and Spolin, and she was working with challenged youth,
Hmm.
and she
Right.
started act. That's what's the beginning point, at least from my understanding and reading of the improvisation movement. I mean,
Hmm.
improvisation's been around
Sure.
for
Centuries.
years or
Yeah.
centuries or a
Yeah.
lifetime. Maybe we
Sure.
can call it that.
Yep. Right.
But I'm also one of my favorite things to do is listen to live improvisational jazz, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a strong community for that here in Chicago. So anyhow, That's
Sure.
the
And
improv piece.
and the information in We the Leader is, on that note, based on your experiences, but it's also based on neuroscience principles and practices. So tell me a little bit about the science behind this book.
Certainly. I've mentioned the consilience, but in the neuroscience, it's basically about how the brain works now, how we understand the brain works in the latest neuroscience. And historically, the way the brain worked was drawn from a dead brain. They didn't actually see a brain, but with brain scans, and I think that started around in 71. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't nearly as developed as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
But with brain scans, Jennifer, they can see a live brain. They can
Sure.
experience a live brain. And most of our assumptions are that you got the right brain and you got the left brain. And then
Mm-hmm.
you work with the right brain, or you're coming from the left brain, back
Mm-hmm.
and forth. It's either one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And the right brain, we know, is more about creativity and
Mm-hmm.
being in the moment and curiosity. And the left brain is more logical and linear and
Mm-hmm.
conviction.
Mm-hmm.
But when they observe the live brain, not a dead brain, but a live brain,
Mm-hmm.
it's mingled back and forth. You can't tell the difference. Both things are happening at the same time. And that's what We the Leader's calling for. We bring a curiosity and a conviction. We lead and follow simultaneously. And we can learn to do that. And sometimes we fall into it. But
Mm-hmm.
that's our future. That's where the creativity really happens.
Mm-hmm.
Is that clear?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got me kind of that curious conviction spot where I'm in and I want to learn more. So if I want to find out more about We the Leader and about your company, Leading Leaders, where can I go to get more information?
The website is www.wetheleader.com. And there's a fascinating quiz there that if it's not activated right now, it'll be activated very soon. And that'll tap you into thinking more about We the Leader and
Mm-hmm.
give you an opportunity to buy the book and
Love it.
then take it from there.
That's great. And all those links will be included in this episode's companion guide. So I want to let everybody know to be sure to unlock that today at projectionsinc.com/podcast. Right now, though, Jeff, it is time for our lightning round questions. And these are questions I like to ask of every guest of the podcast. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, very good. So our first question is a topic showdown. In this episode, we've been talking about the evolution of leadership. So Jeff, which of these inspirational songs are on your leadership playlist? Aerosmith's Dream On or Sarah Bareilles' Brave?
Marvin Gaye, what's going on?
Okay.
Tell me what's going on. It's a question.
I like it.
It opens it up.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next question. What is the best book you've read recently?
A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, tell me, what's your favorite thing about the work that you do?
You know, the way I feel having this conversation.
Excellent.
I love feeling this way.
Yeah,
and this
for
is
sure.
what I do.
All right, great. All right, next one. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Don't give advice.
That's the advice. Don't give advice. I like it. All right, last question. Who or what inspires you?
You know, Mary Parker Follett. There's a book called The Profit of Management, and it's about Mary Parker Follett, and these great leadership gurus give her credit. She came to her prime in the 1920s. I spent a summer reading her stuff about 5 years ago, and she's spectacular.
Yeah, and that just ties back in with what we said at the beginning of the podcast about how sometimes it takes the perspective from the past to really move us forward into the future. So I love that. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on Project HR.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you, Jennifer.
I also want to thank our listeners. And once again, this is your reminder to grab that companion guide for this episode at projectionsinc.com/podcast. If you'd like to be on Project HR or you know someone who would, feel free to email us at projecthr@projectionsinc.com. And last but certainly not least, to make sure you never miss an episode of Project HR, I hope you'll subscribe to the podcast. Drop us a line, leave us a review, or give us a handful of stars wherever you get your content. That's it for me for now. Let's make it a great day at work.